Welcome to the Marine Advisory Board meeting for September 7th. I hope everybody had an enjoyable summer, had a great month off. If you don't mind, let's get a roll call, please.
Mr. Harrison,
Here.
Mr. Flanagan.
Here.
Mr. McLaughlin.
Here.
Mr. Lynch,
Here.
Ms. Torelli, absent. Mr. Brunel,
Here.
Ms. Norvell, absent. Mr. Franks,
Here.
Mr. Boyer, absent. Mr. Knott,
Here.
Ms. George, absent. Mr. Washington.
Here.
Mr. Reepholz, absent. Mr. Walker
Here.
and Chair Whitten.
Yes,
We have a quorum.
thank you. So last month, I'm sorry, 2 months ago in July, unfortunately, Carl wasn't here and Andrew took the notes. So I'm assuming everybody read the minutes. Thank you, Andrew, for providing that information. Does anybody have any questions?
I have some, Steve,
Yes, sir.
on page 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paragraphs down. First of all, it says on the fourth paragraph, Mr. Washington, it says Mr. McLaughlin added that while many seawalls are constructed using shell rock, that's many seawalls are constructed on shell rock and stuff over there. And it should be that panel seawalls, the normal concrete panel seawalls, cannot be driven far into the ground with those. Only the steel sheet piles can. All right, so the panel walls can't be driven. They have to be jetted and stuff down, and it's hard to get them down. So they're not driven into, or they're not made of sheet rock. They're actually driven in it. That's the
So-
only thing I have.
Thank you. Anybody else? So first of all, let me get a motion to approve the minutes from July 6th, please. Anybody have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Second,
Second.
Mr. Franks. All in agreement?
Aye.
Aye.
Can you repeat the correction? It was.
Oh, yeah,
how many
the
seawalls
correct,
are
the correction was,
constructed
and it says, if you have it in there, it says, they added that while many seawalls are constructed using shell rock. All right, the word using there is not, it's on shell rock, what they're putting on there. And which should be like a concrete or a panel wall cannot be driven into the ground. Sheet piles are driven into the bedrock and stuff, which is so, in other words, there could be some changes and stuff in here, but actually panel walls cannot be driven into the, and far into the ground.
So that's going to segue me into something that's not on here. Excuse me. Norbert's been kind enough to share some slides, photos with Andrew on progress at EMR and all that. So we're going to put you on the spot and hope that you be an industry expert next month and share that with us if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'll go along with Robert and do
That'd be
that
great.
stuff, because I'm not gonna step on him, but
We'd
he had him in
love-
there, so I'll go over it with him and we'll
So
do a presentation.
Norbert had shared some photos on progress for marine construction at the EMR. Andrew was very impressed with them, so we're going to have him show it next month.
So next month, we have the Coast Guard coming as well. So should
We'll
get it all
set
in
time
there?
again.
Okay.
If we can,
I'll try to get
we'll
it.
look, see what's on the agenda. But I think that would be great. I appreciate that.
Gonna have pictures too.
Yeah, that's what it's all about.
That's
We have a new member, but he's not a new member. He's an old member and an important part of the community. Bill Walker owns the water taxi. Bill, you timed out. Is that what happened before?
Yes.
So Bill had been on the board. We had actually spent a fair amount of time during COVID communicating through Zoom. But Bill is a great member to have back. And Bill, if you don't mind, just take a second to tell us a little bit more about you, please.
Sure. I've been in the passenger vessel industry for over 30 years. I was in development of high-speed ferries up in the Boston area. And my company, my partner and I were the first ones to develop an ADA compliant watertight door. Most of the time you see it in, movies, people got to climb over a watertight door. Well, the catamaran design, we actually put the watertight component between the hulls, got Coast Guard approval, and actually won a fair amount of federal awards for that. I got into the industry with the idea of like, hey, how do you give people the best experience on the water? Up in Boston, we were moving about 3 million people a year on the commuter service, on the New England Aquarium's whale watch operation for 10 years. Bought the water taxi back in 2007. The company was doing about 85,000 boardings a year. This year, we are gonna probably approach 1.1 million. We run 13 boats. We have 130 employees and really love working in the community. We service a fair amount of Broward now, we all the way down to Hollywood. And right now we're looking at, potentially expanding up into the Pompano area. Biggest thing we got coming up right now is the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show, where we'll actually move 90,000 people in 5 days by water, which is really cool. We charter 4 to 6 boats in to help us out with that, shut down the water taxi service. But it's a really cool thing for the community to go to a billions of dollar event by water, presented by our city. So,
Well, thank you. I think that excuse me, Bill's been well aware of what we're working on the moratorium. Safe to say he has a vested interest here, so great timing to join us back.
looking forward to it.
Sergeant O'Neill, we missed you before. We had a great substitute, but he wasn't you. Hope you enjoyed your summer as well, and if you don't mind, so I'm gonna, before I let me see if I can find the right file, because I want to quote this. Actually, what I can't find it, what I think the article said was they caught the a-holes. Did they catch the a-holes?
And I would say. I know they were able to clear 10 cases off that one person. One of
So
my,
the big one was they picked up, I think, a dozen or so people the other day in the Keys.
in the Keys, yeah.
And they said they've been running from kind of Palm Beach County on down. Are
Yeah.
those the guys? that did
Yeah,
that?
so- Several of 10 of our cases were able to be cleared because we were able to blood evidence to that one individual in that group. So they got charges pending on 10 of our burglaries
Wow.
for that one.
The actual heading was, and that wasn't, they caught the a-holes, but it was crime ring busted after stealing $2.5 million of GPS units from Florida Douglas. That's some pretty serious stuff. So thank you again for the efforts there. So tell us what's going on. How many garbage units were stolen?
Actually, well, for 2 months, so I got 2 months worth of things here. So for 2 months worth, we're for us doing pretty good. So on July 3rd, 840 Northeast 20th Avenue, a vessel was burglarized. It was a JBL speaker, a knife, and iced tea stolen. So it was a crime opportunity for that. On July 14th at the Bahia miscellaneous food was taken. So another crime of opportunity, I think, probably salon door, something was left open. They were able to get good fingerprints, able to match fingerprints to a suspect who currently has a warrant, and he's a homeless individual. So he hasn't been in the area, so I'm sure he'll get caught up soon enough. On July 23rd at Lauderdale Marina, 2 Garmin GPS 8617s were taken. There was fingerprint evidence. I looked at the detective's update, and it looks like they weren't able to match fingerprints to anybody on that one. On July 26th, 1617 Southeast 15th Street, 2 Garmins were also taken. Same, we were able to find fingerprints, but no matches on that. And in August 24th, at Riverfront Marina, 2 more Garmins were taken. And still waiting to hear back on the fingerprints for that one, if they're just the homeowners or if the actual suspect left the fingerprints behind. The Marine unit wrote 60 citations and responded to 94 calls for service. I just wanted to talk about one of the calls for service we responded to. I know me and Jimmy talked about this a while ago, but just let everybody else know. 2 officers heard a call for medical assistance at the Triangle area, Sandbar, on VHF channel 16, saying that there was somebody there who was not conscious, not breathing. They had taken a charter out, and mom and dad, grandma and kids, I think they underestimated the current. And when the kids and the grandmother got into the water, I think they were struggling a little bit. And then the father jumped in to help them. And then he was starting to struggle and he ended up going under. Some other people pulled him up, but he wasn't conscious of breathing at the time. So the officers were right on scene within a minute or so. And they pulled him from the small, he was on a small little whaler. They physically pulled him up to one of our boats. We had more working room in the stern to work on him. He had obstruction in his airway. When the officers cleared his airway, began CPR on him. and called for the medics. While doing that, the other officer who's there is a certified dive master instructor, and he saw someone had oxygen on their boat who's a diver, and he administered oxygen to him while continuing CPR to keep that good blood flow pumping into his brain. Medics arrived. They took over CPR. We responded, took him to the ambulance to the hospital where he was able to be stabilized. I don't know what the outcome is for that, but they were able to keep his heart going, his blood going, and able to get in the hospital so he could be stabilized. Both officers did receive shift level commendation from the department, and hopefully that'll turn into a life-saving award. I'm still waiting to hear if they're going to turn into a life-saving award.
Yeah, actually, I happened to witness the offloading of the boat of the victim. I was across the canal at 15th Street and watched the boats come down, and they offloaded him and took him up and put him into the ambulance going. And the whole process was just so fluid. They did such a good job. You know, you guys were really, well prepared, did a super job. The EMTs did it was like 20 people all working in harmony. They had him off the boat in an ambulance within 2 minutes, less than that. And there was a lot of people, a lot of chaos, a lot going on, and they did a really good job. So I just want to say thank you.
Yeah, please. I mean, we don't hear about things like this. This is routine in your life, but it just gives us an opportunity to thank you and you guys. I mean, it's a horrible story. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's something we have trained on since I've been a supervisor there. We do monthly training, and that's this kind of thing is something we train because, there is a fire boat in the county and for the city, but usually we get there quicker. So, we've been working with fire rescue, with ocean rescue, on these kind of things. A lot of times we're there way before they can get there, because if they're at their station, they're going to have to, gear up, jump on the boat, and respond when we're already out on the water. So that's something we've been training on. Even people in the water, people out of the water, any type of medical first aid that we can provide. My guys have all been trained on that, and I've actually used it. I mean, I've been a Marine officer or a sergeant for almost 12 years. It's countless how many times I've used it, so.
Well, let's just make an agreement that from now on we share good news.
Yes, I have it. I definitely will.
So next, that's a tough act to follow. So next, Leslie Fordham, and if I have it correct, and Dominique Dennis are here from, it's actually from it's Bradley Cultural Division, wherever they are. And Leslie, Denise, I'm not, Dominique, I'm sorry, no disrespect, but I'm not sure if you were here the last time when Leslie was here. But they've done a presentation on lighting on New River Bridge, at 17th Street Bridge, etc. It was something that the board was really excited about, and I'm assuming this is a follow-up presentation. So
Yes,
go ahead,
indeed.
please.
Yes, thank you very much for inviting us back. We'll get our PowerPoint ready to go, and if I can ask for the next slide, please. This is an aerial view here of both the Andrews Avenue Bridge and the 3rd Avenue Bridge. Both of those bridges are ones in which we're doing an artistic lighting treatment. Next slide, please. Thank you. Sure, you're all very familiar with the Andrews Avenue Bridge, recently painted by the county. It's now a biscuit color rather than the old pink. And this is the first bridge that we'll be installing artistic lighting on. Right now, the project's in the permitting process. The artist is Susan Arduli, and Dominique will tell you more about where we go next. But before we talk about the nuts and bolts, next slide, please. Our public art process. Wanted to let you know that we put out a solicitation, a call to artists. We get in proposals from artists all over the country. Artist Susan Arduli, who's based in California, was selected for this project and for the 3rd Avenue Bridge, which Dominique will also tell you about. And right now, as I mentioned before, we're in the permitting process after going through an artist selection panel comprised of citizens and arts professionals. And this went all the way up to the county commission for approval of the design. over to Dominique.
Hi. Next slide, please. As you mentioned,
We speak up.
usually we submit the call to artists, and in that call to artists, we give prospective applicants the scope of the project. For this project, the artist had to create an artistic lighting design that the lighting design should have a strong visual identity at the bridge, make a unique visual statement, and then enhance the pedestrian vehicular experience. Next slide, please. I'm showing you a few images of the Andrews Avenue Bridge, it's the Basque Bridge. One of the requirements that was that lighting should not be added to the Basque section of the bridge, meaning that the area that opens up, there should not be any lighting there. Next slide, please. Some shots of the piers. Next slide. Okay, so Susan Naduli was selected amongst 55 applicants. And because of the restriction, she wanted to create, first, there's two areas where she wanted to have the lighting design. That was the tower, so people on the upper level can actually realize there's a lighting design there. And also at the piers, where she added perforated panel, metal panels with backlighting. Next slide, please. Those are the different lighting design. This will be continuously moving, slowly moving, where there will be a kind of a dialogue between each one of the piers related to the movement of the river. Next slide, please. And views from the north side. This one, looking at the next one. And next slide, please. Those are all the different views. So this is really a dynamic lighting design. Next one. And as you could see in the images, we'll have a nice reflection of the design on the water. So that will be something really nice. So the Third Avenue Bridge, because we wanted to create a connection between those two bridges, so we decided to select the same artist for the second bridge. The scope of work is basically the same, except that we wanted to really create that visual and a connection between the two bridges. Next slide. So this is the same selection process that we went through. And currently, we are about to submit the design proposal to the Board of County Commissioners on the 19th of this month for approval. So once that happens, then we'll give the notice to the artist to continue with further developing the design and putting together the construction documents to be submitted for permitting. That should take a few months to get done, up to a year. Next slide. Images of Third Avenue. Thanks. Once again, it's a Basque Bridge, so no lighting should be attached to the Basque area of the bridge. This bridge is a little different because there's a lot of pedestrian traffic, vehicular and pedestrian traffic under the bridge. Next slide. So this was the design. So the lighting is on both the north and south side of the bridge. Once again, she created a lighting design at the tower, so the two bridges can connect with each other. So the programming will be really coordinated. Lighting and the colors between the two bridges. Next one, next one. So she shows very specific areas where there will be lighting. You have the control tower, you have pier wash, number 3, wall wash, number 4, and colonnade and underpass wash. The colonnade and underpass wash, that's where we have most activities. Over here and up there, where both the people walking on the sidewalk can actually have, there will be a connection between the lighting design and the traffic and the people walking on the sidewalk. Next one. Again, some images. confused at this time. So this is a little video. This is the video, the audit. You can actually click on if you put your cursor, exactly, you can play. This is a preliminary animation that she created. This is looking from Third Avenue, the one on front is Third Avenue, and the one in the back is Andrews. That gives you a sense of the connection between the two. Few things have changed in Andrews, but more or less it's the same. This was when she was doing a series of charades. She came to town and she did a series of charades with members of the community before coming out to the front. We can stop. It's pretty long, so we don't want to bore you. So light crossing is the title of that.
I
You
believe
can
that
stop.
the lights in the room here are washing out the colors, but they will be very vibrant, so they won't be bothering your eyes, but quite impactful. And we have another slide to show you. On the agenda tonight, it mentions Phil Dunlap will be here to talk about the 17th Street Causeway, East Glacial Bridge. Unfortunately, the county commission's talking about budgets tonight. He can't be with you. He'd like to come to a future meeting, but we have a bit of a taster here on the next couple of slides. Sure, you're very familiar with the bridge.
There's no water here, that's going on here for 5 years.
The artist is out of Chicago. He's put together a local team that includes Kimley Horn, who's actually nationwide, but they're based in Miami, Pompano Beach, and then a local electrical engineer who really seems to know his stuff, knows where we need to plug in, so to speak, to get the maximum power that we need for this bridge. The bridge, of course, it's right across the county convention center, which is being renovated, and we want to see a lot of interaction between the bridge, what happens under the bridge, and the convention center. Bill will be happy to tell you all about that next time.
Outstanding, really outstanding. Anybody have any questions for Leslie or Dominique? Please.
I'm sorry, I had to step out momentarily, so I may have missed this. The colors that we're seeing in the presentation, is that what we'll see in real life, or is there an opportunity to change it up for holidays or special events?
Yes.
Yes, we actually have, I believe, 6 or 7 holidays that we selected, and the colors will change. Next time, we'll make sure we have those colors so you get to see, but it will change for specific holidays. So there's a calendar that was chosen by the county
Same
and the
paths?
city.
Same paths?
I believe it's in it, yes.
Thank you very much.
One question.
Jimmy, please.
On the 17th Street Bridge, has the Coast Guard been consulted as far as safety of navigation?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Wait, I saw that we're on some best.
They're just,
Excuse me. What was the question or what was from patient? The best, I saw that the rule about not putting things on the moving part of the bridge or on 17th Street Bridge, should that not still apply?
those are uplights, and so the fixtures can't be placed on the vestibule because that will change the calibration. However, they're attached to the piers and they can shine on the moving part of the bridge, as long as they're not attached to that.
It's just projected, it's projection, that water, light wash. So it's below, but it's projected, so it lights up,
It doesn't look, just doesn't look that way.
but that's all.
Thank you
I'll be
again.
there with my flashlight.
Maybe.
Actually, just one thing, just to clarify what you're just saying. So the rule is you can't have lights on the moving part of the bridge, but to work around that, you shine the light from somewhere that's not in the moving part to the moving part.
Yes.
I think that defeats the idea behind
The
that.
idea is we can't have fixtures on the moving part of the bridge and other.
It's
Yeah,
a structural,
exactly.
then they change the way the bridge goes like that. It's not,
That's
it's
like-
not the lighting, it's something.
It's for the weight.
Well, I know that for the Winterfest boat parade, we have all kinds of problems with trying to put lights, on pilings and doing things like that. So I know the Coast Guard is concerned with lights and navigation. But if they're being consulted, I mean, I just wouldn't want to get too far ahead and then have the Coast Guard come in and say, nope, can't do that.
No, they've been consulted actually for Andrews, we got their approval in terms of the colors and the location. They've looked at the design.
Okay.
They just want us to let them know when 2 weeks prior to installation. Obviously, they will send people to inspect, but it's been clear.
17th Street Bridge, it's early days, we'll be going to that.
One small thing I noticed, and I don't know if maybe I just overlooked it, but the Andrews Avenue Bridge area looked like it got a little bit less stressed than the 3rd Street because there was a lot of talk of pedestrian traffic. But there is a lot of pedestrian traffic that we'll start to see on the west side of the Andrews Avenue Bridge very soon with all of the development that is coming out of the ground there. So just personally, because I might live there, would like to see them as equal parts and not one that's the stepbrother or the stepchild of the other.
Part of that was a budgetary issue. When we started off, we only had $90,000 for this project, so I really was going to have to be out there with a flashlight. We were able to crib together more funds, and now we're up to $500,000. The artist advised that there wasn't enough electricity power coming through, so we have to spend another $100,000 bringing power to Andrews Avenue Bridge to fund the lighting. And with the other bridge, 3rd Avenue Bridge, budget is $700,000. We'll be incorporating or coordinating with the county's improvement project, which means that they'll provide the electricity. They won't have that extra $100,000. To give you some benchmarks, 17th Street Causeway, we think that'll cost $5 million. We don't have all the funding. Yeah.
What's the timeline
For
for the ones that are funded?
Andrews Avenue Bridge, we're going through permitting right now, which I believe is why we keep to Andrew's attention. Like to have it installed in December, as long as the artist gets their permit and everything else falls into place. For 3rd Avenue Bridge, we are dependent on the county's project and they're dependent on funding. So we thought it was going to forward right away, then put back a little, and so we'll be having those discussions with those folks. For the 17th Street Causeway, it's the 50th anniversary of our public art and design program in 2016. So we'd like to finish it by 2016.
By 20.
26.
So thank you both again. If you'd be kind enough, send updates through Andrew and he'll share it with us. But this is an important part of our community. So thank you.
And we would like you to be part of the projects as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for showing up. Next, we have a dock waiver at 848 Northeast 20th Avenue, which I believe is Tyler and Jenna. Something? Yeah.
Hey, interesting.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I don't need myself.
We'll see if we can switch somebody and- Thank you. Thank you.
Come on.
Yes, please. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
All right, good evening. My name is Catherine Moyer with the Chateau Group. No. And I'll be presenting on behalf of the applicant, 848 Northeast 20th LLC. Next slide. So this is an aerial photograph of the property that is outlined in red, along with the surrounding community along the Middle River. Next slide. This is the northern portion of the property facing south. At this location, the applicant has a coral rock wall, a dock configuration, and 3 mooring piles. Next slide. This is the southern portion of the property facing north. Next slide. This is an aerial view of the property facing east. Next slide. And this is an aerial view of the property facing west. Next slide. This is an overview of the property, again outlined in red. And at this location, they have the coral rock wall, dock configuration that includes a finger pier, and 3 mooring piles to accommodate 2 slips. Next slide. The existing conditions include that 60 linear foot wall and the wooden dock configuration and mooring piles. Next slide. And the proposed conditions include a concrete panel seawall, a concrete marginal dock, and a concrete finger pier to accommodate 2 slips. And what we are requesting today is a waiver for that 48.4 foot finger pier. Next slide. These are the cross sections. At the top, we have the existing conditions. The existing footer and dock will be removed. And at the bottom, we have the proposed conditions. So you can see the installation of the concrete panel seawall with king and batter piles, along with the concrete marginal dock and finger pier. So again, these are the existing conditions highlighted in orange. It is what is to remain on the property, which is the coral rock wall. And then highlighted in blue is what is to be removed, which is the dock configuration, along with the mooring piles. And then these are the proposed conditions. Again, we have our seawall in orange, and then in green, we have what is to be proposed. So we have the concrete panel seawall and the dock configuration. And again, we will be requesting a waiver for that 48.4 foot finger pier. And then this is another example of the proposed conditions, just showing the entire length of the canal, which is at 281 feet. And then as you can see, the line more waterward is that all of our vessels and structures will be no greater than 25% width of the waterway. So what we are requesting tonight, since the finger pier is 48.4 feet from the property line, we will need 23.4 feet for that waiver that does include the 25. And then some extraordinary circumstances for this property. All structures will not exceed 25% width of the waterway. And due to the extraordinary width at 281 feet, this will not impede navigation within the Middle River. The proposed structures are necessary for safe mooring of vessels, especially during high wind events and severe weather. And the proposed structures are also necessary to protect the vessels from high wave energy, from excessive boat wakes along the Middle River, and also high wave energy that is caused from the adjacent water ski zone in the Middle River and high boat traffic throughout the canal. So the applicant has received letters of support from the northern and southern neighbors, along with an additional neighbor on the southern side at 834-836 Northeast 20th Avenue. And then what we are proposing falls in line with what has been previously authorized, as there have been waivers approved everywhere from 40 feet is the max width, all the way up to 125 feet. Ours falls in line with that at 48.4.
Yeah, don't show the size of the boat.
So you guys have any questions?
Yeah, what size boats do you expect to put there?
63 feet.
Okay.
What size was the boat?
63 feet.
I have a couple questions on here. I'm looking at the original things that I have in here. You're looking at the distance from seawall or from property line to property line is 281 feet. So at 281 feet, the way my math is, and I hope I'm wrong, math says that 84 feet would be would be 30% of that, which you're within that distance. However, I'm looking at what, I don't know, Tyler, where you get this information and stuff from, and I'd be interested in that, because I'm looking at something like 810. They got 2 permits and stuff over there. One of them was 124.4 feet out. Now that takes up a heck of a lot more than 84% of that. And if looking down the road, I said, I see 125, 125, 125, 106 on where you got the information from. And not only that, that does not correspond to the information where you have this picture. And it's the same exact thing, 848 and 816 was 124.4, where actually over here, the information that you got was 112. Which one's correct? You know, like, I don't know where you got the information from on previous waivers. And every one of these previous waivers shows both well in excess of the 30% rule.
So how the Chappelle Group, 714 East Nav, Pompano Beach. You had, I think, 3 questions in there. So one, where we got the information is we got the information for the waivers from the city of Fort Lauderdale from Andrew, or there were waivers that we did personally.
That worries me, but go ahead.
And 2, the answer to your question about the 30%. So there are some properties on here that have, they may have waivers that go out to the 30% because they didn't require a submerged land lease at that point. Submerged land leases and DEP have been much more stringent in the last few years on these properties on 20th specifically, where they're starting to really hone down on the properties that do not have leases, that need to have leases. So we're required to adhere to not only their setback policy, but also their distance out we have to go, which is 25%.
See, my question is, like, these waivers that are 125, 124 feet and stuff over there, when I was doing the measurement, if somebody brought it before here and they said, hey, man, you gave it to these people, we want the same thing and we're on the other side of the river, that gives 31 feet in between that rule, where it should be well over 100 feet on the 40%.
One, I guess the third question is why, is that, you know, as you go from north to south on that section of Middle River,
I know
it gets wider, right? So all the properties that are in the 100 to 125 range are all on the southern portion of 20th Avenue.
Well,
804 is 824.
So you're not gonna have waivers that are gonna be greater
It's not.
than
816 is
Not on there.
supporting a vessel more than 30%. And most likely they will have the 25% as well.
Okay, I guess what I'm looking at is, I said, we just had a variance where they were gonna put on a deed where they were gonna hold somebody to 50 feet. And if this is the kind of reporting that the city is given, there isn't even right, because they're giving you 112 on one side and 124 on the other side. That they're having. I said, that doesn't have anything to do with you. I said, probably with the city attorney.
So are you
But
saying
the reporting of this over there, if you're gonna put something on a deed or something, and these are what they're putting down, I said,
if you
they're
think
not
that
right.
There's something wrong on our sheet, I can
Yeah.
certainly look. and
Well, that's what I was
make sure
asking.
that- But I mean, I can tell you that where we get the information from is either from the city of Fort Lauderdale or it's a waiver that we've done in the past.
And that's what I was saying. I said, but my question was it your thing, or if you got this information from the city? That's what worries me.
I mean, I can probably answer, if you give me a specific address. Memory's not what it used to be, but if you want a specific address, I can tell you if we did.
I said, the one that you're proposing here, that's fine. I mean, you're well within the distance and stuff, even at the 63-foot boat stuff out, because you got, even before you hit the 30% is 94 feet out there, so you're fine. But there's 2-3 houses down from that, because they know how they run, before you get to that wide area that are well in excess of the 30% rule. But I said, you people are fine. I was more interested in where you got the information from
That's where the information would come from.
That's
From
where
the
it came-
city's
that's where it comes
waiver
from.
Online for Andrew, or we did it internally.
So it doesn't, I don't think, I mean, first of all, I think Norbert's point is well taken in the sense that we should have factual information to deal with. I don't think it's germane to your application, but I think that the representation is one thing and the, turns out that the actual is very different. So again, it's not your issue, but it's something we should certainly work on.
There's nothing wrong with the application.
No,
right.
There's nothing wrong with the application.
Something made it 10 years ago, once this says something, you know?
Anybody else have any questions? Yes.
We're going to start out with a comment. At the last commission meeting on July 5, the commission granted a dock waiver. I believe y'all had recommended denial. But they put a limitation on the length of the vessel. And it was also structured in such a way that it's recorded in the public records and it's a covenant that runs with land. You're telling us 68 feet on the length of the vessel, I think?
63.
Do you have, I'm sorry,
63.
63? Do you have any desire to offer a limitation on that vessel? Because I think what we're having here is these other cases, you get the dock waiver, but the 30% deals with the length of the vessel, and that's not often reflected in the applications. And as part of the discussion the last time, there was a suggestion of having if you limit the vessel to 50 feet on that last application, make that last piling at 50 feet. It makes it so much easier for Marine Patrol and code enforcement to be able to go out and enforce it. Do you have any thoughts on that, Tyler?
I would say we are complying by the limits of the submerged land lease, and the vessel and structure cannot exceed that, which is how we develop the size of the vessel. So, which is under what the current city code is. So
But-
we're
But I
already
think
agreeing to.
what's happening here is your application is fine. But tomorrow, somebody may put a 120-foot vessel out.
Then it would not be in compliance with the lease.
With
And
lease.
they would come.
The submerged land lease?
Submerged land lease, and they would come out and have us, and we've had that on this issue. In fact, neighbor, Mr. Brandmeier, had the same issue where his two boats were out beside the lease and we had to make adjustments.
And who brought that to his attention?
It's the state.
The state did, okay.
Yeah, every year they inspect leases.
Because I'm always thinking in terms of our city people doing the enforcement, to know that the state is doing that gives me a sense of relief.
Yes.
This is an area, I mean, we have granted waivers. This is an area where there are large ships, so it's not unusual to see big boats up there. It's kind of a unique area by Middle River. Anybody else have questions for Catherine or Ivor? Any other questions, guys? Anybody like to make a motion, please? Barry made a motion to approve. Anybody like to second that?
I'll second.
Bruce for second. Into the roll call, please.
Mr. Harrison,
Yes.
Mr. Flanagan,
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin,
Yes.
Mr. Lynch.
Yes.
Ms. Chirelli,
Yes.
Mr. Brunel,
Yes.
Mr. Franks.
Yes.
Mr. Knott,
Yes.
Mr. Washington,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Chair Whitten.
Yes, thank you. Motion passes. Thank you all very much. Thanks, Catherine and Tyler. Are you guys hanging for a minute? Okay, you know what? Let me take a second. We have another waiver, but before we do that, I have a question for Tyler, and we're clearly out of line here, but our esteemed member, Barry Flanagan, has mentioned a number of times at various meetings as well as discussions with Andrew that we do not have a marked navigable channel on the New River. And you have some experience with that. And so one of Barry's concerns is that we don't have a marked channel, and is also concerned about dredging. And this is something that Bob Franks has brought up, et cetera. Can you just talk to that, why we do not have a navigable channel, marked navigable channel on the river?
Well, you have a marked channel to a point on the river. And I mean, you have markers over at the bend past Collie Hammock Park where the bend is. There's a corner there, where Revis is on the left, and there's a marker right there at that point. I think there's a shallow area there. The core New River Channel, from what I remember, stops before you get to that point. Why there's not a New River Channel, I don't, from a jurisdictional standpoint, I don't know that. From a, channel being, navigational channel and how it's defined, there is a navigational channel in the New River that's used by, I've seen that was one done before by DEP when they were looking at dredging the New River. They showed a channel, and then obviously there's channels where bridge spans are, where there's an alignment where the bridge is. So when they DOT built those bridges, they used some form of alignment to dictate where that bridge span would be. That's my only know.
I think one of the concerns is that we continue talking about the moratorium. We need areas that we can lay over and et cetera. And if we don't have a marked channel, it's tough to make those decisions.
Sure.
Correct, Larry?
It would be a lot easier to know where the channel goes, where it may apply, the distances may apply in one area and the same formula won't work in another area because the channel may come a lot closer to the seawall. We don't know that. And I recall years ago getting some topographic from you on Winterfest, right? To bring that big sailboat up there. But it stopped well short of where we want to go, all the way up. And you're the only source that we picked around that might know if there is anything further. Do you have any? We should have that
further dig to see if there is in fact a delineated channel, but I would first start with FIND to see, how they defined it when they were doing the dredging project back then, when there was the agreement between the city and the county and FIND to do that project.
When did that, how far up did they dredge?
They never did it.
They never.
No, there was
Feasibility study.
Yeah, they did a study and they looked at the bathymetry and they even went to get a lease and easement from the state all the way up to just past Bradford.
Was that the one that Feldman pulled back on?
I'm not gonna say who.
2014, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Who was it?
So let's just say it was the city and the county did not believe that they could partner.
I think we need to have that to address this issue properly.
Well, I think to answer your question, Chair, is that in order to delineate channels and take into account structures, you take into account navigation, waterway, and then obviously you have to take into account the bathymetry of the waterway. Where the Army Corps and some of the others who actually have channels that they manage, they get in trouble because you set a channel, but that's not necessarily where the boats are traveling.
But we have a representative of the Coast Guard next month, and that might be helpful, Council.
To your recollection, how far west does the channel currently go?
The current one that I've seen on survey and that was provided to us by the Corps stops where just before you get to that bend, where the widest part of the river is, you come in intercoastal, you go back, the gentleman, was having
In the
issue.
Cooley Hammock?
Yes, just before Cooley Hammock.
Okay.
The widest part of the river, where it's wide and then it kind of tapers in and then it makes that bend. It stops before that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler. If you're kind enough, we obviously have great respect for you and your firm. If you're kind enough and you come across anything, please share it with Andrew.
Sure,
and I'll make sure they're aware of it. Thank you both. Next on the agenda, we have a dock permit for 817 Cordova Road. And if I find my
Marshall.
notes. Okay, you see it here? So we had approved Marco. So we had approved a waiver for 817 Cordova Road previously, if I'm correct, a permit. And now you are back to request a boat lift at the same location, am I correct?
Yes, I'm Mark Melendez, I'm representing 917 Rio LLC. I'm VP of Design of Edward Development, who's developing this project. We intend to build 8x47, wood-pile dock on 817 Cordova. The only difference is that the owner wanted to add a boat lift, and so we added on our application all the specs for the boat lift, respecting all the setbacks and guidance for business products. For the items. Respect for the boat lift and the next slide, please.
Talk a little louder, please, Ms. Carla. Can't hear
Yeah, a
you.
little louder,
Oh,
a
yeah.
little slower.
Please go ahead.
So the only difference on our previous application is that we are adding a 14 plans as before, we're just adding the boat lift and requesting permission for this.
So on this one, again, we had approved a marginal 47-foot dock. So any questions for this applicant as to what he's doing, the size of the boat lift, et cetera?
Just one, I didn't see in any of the drawings, the width of the canal or the width of the waterway at that point. What, that you're out, 24 feet, 4 inches. And I just wondered what the width was as far as the percentage of the intrusion.
That information I'll have to look it up on my application.
Okay. Do you know, Andrew, do you know at this location, is it a 25% or is it 30%?
That's a 30% canal.
Is it 30%? If it's 30%, then it's gonna be fine. Okay. No worries.
There is a provision in the code that does not allow the vessel in residential areas, residential zoning districts, to be berthed in such a manner that it extends into this extension of the side yard setbacks. I noticed your bow comes right there. It may be to your benefit to swing the boat around the other way because you got plenty of room going to the, I guess that's to the north.
Okay.
Is that 5 feet?
Yes.
So you require 5 foot setback.
We're
It's
right there
too-
Yeah.
It's too close to the bridge to do that. Looking at it, I would look at the property today. I don't think you can put the boat going the other way.
You don't think it can, the bow can face north?
I don't think so.
That's a potential code violation if you get a larger boat later on or something
Yeah.
like that.
There's also no property. I mean, it's the bridge that's there, so it's.
I understand, but that setback still applies
Yeah, I
regardless.
understand.
I know we went through some exercises with Public Works to try to find out what kind of a distance separation do you need between the bridge and so on and so forth.
So just be warned, there is an issue there if you're too close to the bridge. And that would be a consideration. The boat lift by no means touches the seawall, am I correct?
Yes, and we're trying to stay away from the right away from the bridge, from the get-go when we were applying for the first.
Straightforward. Any other questions, anybody? Any thoughts from anybody? Anybody have a motion? Motion to approve.
Yep, second.
Brewster, there's a motion to approve. James Harrison, second. Thank you all, everybody. Take a roll call, please, on this.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Harrison,
Yes.
Mr. Flanagan,
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin,
Yes.
Mr. Lynch,
Yes.
Ms. Chirelli,
Yes.
Mr. Brunel,
Yes.
Mr. Franks,
Yes.
Mr. Knott,
Yes.
Mr. Washington,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Chair Whitney,
Yes,
motion carried.
that was great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next is, we had on our agenda every month a follow-up on the New River moratorium, et cetera. In this case, So Bob Dunkel is obviously here with us. I had emailed you all earlier and asked you to take a look at the language that Bob had put together. He and I spoke, and what we agreed to do, because I've got comments, and again, thank you for sharing comments to Andrew, it's the way to do this. What I'd like to do is to have comments from some of you, if you all have other issues on it or other suggestions, please send them to Andrew. If there's something particular, we can discuss it now. But what I'd like to do is I'm going to summarize the comments to Bob tomorrow and maybe trim the fat a little bit. He was concerned that the preamble was a little wordy. What we had done was go out to many of the, well, he's an attorney, but we had gone out to many of the stakeholders and asked them for comments. So what Bob had put in there is really comments from stakeholders. But again, he wants to maybe trim the fat a little bit, but most importantly, confirm for accuracy. So if we're making a representation before it hits a city commission, if we say it's black and it's white, we're going to look bad at Bob's going to look bad, and we don't want Bob. So
more
we need to-
importantly, the commission, when they adopt the ordinance, is verifying that that the preamble is true and accurate. They're the ones I don't want to get in trouble.
So if you'd be kind enough, again, if there's a particular issue, we can discuss it. There's a lot there. I have a fair amount to work with that was shared with me. If anybody else would follow up and send me comments, then I will complete that, send it to Bob, send it to Andrew for all you to see as well. Does that make sense? Any other comments on that?
Comment, just thank you very much for taking the time and doing this work on this. This is really appreciated. Thank you.
Let me make one quick comment, just so everybody, going forward, we finally put this in condition that I'm willing to go forward with, it's got to go to the planning and zoning board because it's actually a moratorium on something in the ULDR. After it goes to the planning and zoning board, then it goes to the commission. So I don't even want to project at this point whether we're talking 1 month, 2 month, what have you.
So with respect to that, on a timing standpoint, we obviously will start discussing some of the thoughts with respect to how the moratorium works, what we're proposing, et cetera. Basically hoping to come up with some resolution here. When do we start focusing?
I'm going to suggest that I will have another iteration of this for you for the next meeting. At the next meeting, I think that you should start discussing where's this ordinance going to, not where's the moratorium going to go, but where are we going to go with the ordinance to take out some of this pinching that can occur here on what I refer to as West New River.
That makes perfect sense. Steve. Yes.
One question, has, let's say this document, has this been given at all to the Coast Guard? Because they're gonna be here next month also. And I was thinking, well, they also have a proposal that I've been looking at for federally regulated navigation channel. So they're already looking at the New River as almost in the same deal, some kind of moratorium as far as docks and stuff are concerned. Coast Guard seems to be looking into that their own self. So maybe if they ought to take, or whoever is in there looking at this document also, and they may have some discussion on it if they come here next month, you know, in the same token.
They haven't been contacted.
No,
but
I don't know.
Yeah, Norbert, I don't think that they've been contacted specifically on doing
On this here.
That's kind of a backup to if we can't come do this ourselves, they're the backup for
what I'm-
it. They're not addressing it yet.
Well, when the moratorium is adopted for that area that we define as West New River, you will not be able to come to the Marine Advisory Board to apply for a dock waiver, nor will you be able to get one from the City Commission. So it's a placeholder.
Good. Well, I think that it's safe to say that we're going to be in cohorts with the Coast Guard here, et cetera. So we certainly need their support. I mean, you're the one who arranged that.
For the Coast Guard coming in, I think that
Who did that?
patients.
No, I think we had-
Patients did, yeah.
Patience and Sergeant O'Neill,
Okay.
combination there.
Yeah.
So good. We have no support. Okay, great.
The
Anything-
budget won't start till the language is approved in the commission.
Correct.
Approved, that's correct.
No, you can start your discussions on how you want the new
Right.
ordinance
Discussion.
to be administered. Yeah, you can start that next meeting or this meeting if you've got.
Yeah, the 1 year moratorium.
It's a 1 year moratorium,
But that won't start
until it's adopted by the commission. That's correct. However, there is a concept known as zoning in progress, where we have progressed through some of the administrative administrations. The law sometimes allows us to implement it before the adoption of the actual ordinance, so as to avoid a horse race to the courthouse and filing and so on and so forth. That discussion needs to take place with the city attorney. It will be his decision as to whether we can do it. I like it, but I'm not the city attorney.
I hope we don't have to test that either.
Yeah, and it's already seemed to have been, out there that not to do that now.
Yeah.
So it's in effect essentially right now.
Yeah.
Okay,
So if somebody comes to me, should somebody come to me, I will direct them to the chair.
and I'll direct them to the council.
And I'll direct him to Barry.
I think we're all very much on the same page. The
The thing that I was saying with this federally regulated navigation channel, we have in the process right now of a property owner that is looking to put a fixed dock legally on Little Florida. All right, now, if the Coast Guard is involved, Coast Guard, as far as I'm concerned, because we say, hey, what they're throwing in there is within the rules of the city. However, the Coast Guard may have something else to say about that because it's a problem with the navigational channel. So I don't know how far along they are as far as getting permits for that little dock that's on Little Florida and stuff over there. But that will definitely be a hindrance to traffic on the New River. And if the Coast Guard is involved, they may be able to put a stop to that at that particular time. I don't think the city can do that.
So
Coast Guard may.
So let me give you an update on that. Little Florida has been driving me crazy, and we're acting as if it's in a vacuum. It's a third person. So I reached out to the owner today, and the owner is a gentleman named Richard Steiner, who's as nice as could be. He doesn't know that we're working on a moratorium. He doesn't know that we have issues up there. We had a great conversation. We start with the premise that by right, he can do what he wants to do. So we all acknowledge that. And so this was not a contentious conversation. I don't think what I shared with him was our concern, not just about the navigation of the New River, but also the fact that he may spend a fair amount of money, to build a dock that gets taken out the first time a 200-footer goes up. Now, I'm sure that's the case, and we all better be prepared with the ammunition before making a statement. But the way I left it with him, again, excellent gentleman, wanted to come tonight, but was unable to because he's taking care of his kids. He offered to come in October. What I suggested is he and I get together for breakfast or lunch. I will do that. And we will share our concerns and hope that, again, as I shared with him, this isn't about me. It's not about Jimmy. It's not about Norbert. It's about our kids and grandkids. And he was very much on the same page. So I'm going to tell you, I'll report back, but we have some progress, at least having a county board. So and I'll let you know next time how that goes.
Can I reiterate? Please funnel all your suggested moratorium language through me alone, as opposed to through myself and the chair. It has to come through me, and then I'll distribute it to the chair, and we'll compile it together.
But it's just the beauty of this, and it goes to show all the time, is that just communicate. It's we're all very much on the same page. So let's see what happens here. We've got some. Okay, old new business. No, first of all, let me finish again. With respect to the moratorium, it's all moving. Bob will share what he can, and Andrew will forward to you. Any comments, please filter them through Andrew. This is a dialogue, okay? Let's not just talk once a month. Please respond. So thank you all for that. Old new business. We have County Summit topics. What is that?
Oh, so on September 28th, which is very soon.
Oh, that's correct. Yeah.
There'll be a summit, a county summit for all the different municipalities up in Pompano Beach is the address that's here on the agenda. It'd be good if we had some solid representation there. It's the first time in many years that this summit has been held, and we've always participated. We actually hosted the last summit, and I think that it'd be great if the group could come together, if not tonight, then over the next week or so through me, with some summit topics that we can agree upon to bring up at the actual event.
Yeah, let Andrew know if you're gonna go. I'm gonna go. Andrew, I assume you're going as well.
John will be there.
Yeah, and I know Bob, look, we all have a vested interest. Bill immediately raised his hand again because he has a vested interest. So whether you operate a water taxi or you just live in the community, again, bench strength means a lot. So anybody that's willing to go, will take Andrew's
Hey, in the past, Andrew, I've gone to almost all of them. We've had a want list that we present to the county.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's usually, we say several things were thrown in. And we say they want it, because they're gonna ask that. The county comes in there and says, they have X amount of dollars that they want to put towards the project. And whatever project that we agree on, that's where I don't say they were actually gonna do that, but actually that's where they want to put the money towards that project. So that's a want list, and we don't have till next month in order to have what we decide, what we would really like to see.
It's a bit short notice, you're right. So that's why we have to move quickly. on that.
Yeah.
So again, it's what we're talking about is what are our hot topics? What issues do we perhaps share with the other municipalities, et cetera? Safe to say the New River does impact other areas and so on. And it's just a wish list. You know, I want clean water. I want a place to unload, offload. I want a number of things. You know, if you don't ask, you don't get it. So, you know, if you got some hot buttons, let's make sure they're aware. If you can't go, send a note to Andrew and be sure that we'll speak up on your behalf. Before we go to anybody
I got a
else
quick
on.
Comment. So I know in the past, we have brought up things like money for police overtime, those types of things that come out of the county. Is that something we have to bring up, or does that automatically get a check written to you? Or I don't know how that's, in the past, it's always been like, hey, we allocated this much money and time. This board advocated for
Motors we got for them.
motors, they did all kinds of stuff, maybe on the fire rescue side of things. I don't know, I mean, that's a laundry list of public need that. What, you guys have any needs?
Always.
Bullets? No, I don't know.
Always need to maintain.
But maybe that's something we should talk about, kind of go, hey, you know what? Please look for 4 new engines in the next
Absolutely.
8
The
months.
fact that I remember this conversation,
Trailers.
when we had a conversation talking about motors and you had boats that were sitting up in dry dock because you had motors. If that happens again, make sure we're aware of that. That doesn't make sense.
All the boats are currently running. We got a few long in the tooth on the engine side. One boat's long in the tooth. We're looking okay for right now. I think we're finally on track to get those diesel outboards. I think that's
really?
finally. Yeah, procurement's finally, they're coming on board. Actually, they're gifting them to us, or not at least they're gifting them to us now. So that's great. And hopefully they perform like they say they perform. And then after that, there's 2 other, we applied for a grant for one of the boats to get engine replacements. So there's one of the boat that is in need right now for engine. It still runs currently, but it's got like 4,000 hours on it.
What do you do with those? These are the Cox diesels?
Yeah.
What do you do? You have to clean out the gas tanks, et cetera?
So I spoke to the engineer, and besides the the wiring and the gauges, those boats have 2 tanks, and all we have to do is just put bigger fuel lines on. Fuel pumps are different, and that's it. Pretty easy.
It's not shit. I mean, you get thousands of hours out of it.
10,000 hour lifespan.
That's great. Okay, so before we get on to anybody else on new business patients, would you, you're kind enough to join us and we have the boat show coming. We have the boat show coming the end of October. We had asked representatives of the boat show to join us and we're unable to. I don't know if that happens in October, but it's something that means a great deal to all of us and obviously as a source of revenue to the town. Could you just share a moment about anything new and let's just promote the hell out of it right now?
Well, we've been seeing a lot of each other lately, and we were at the security planning meeting this morning, so that all the law enforcement agencies and the fire rescue and all those guys get together and talk about the layout, where they are, and how the plan works, and parking's here and that's it. So that happened today. We do the convention center next week. You don't get to come because there's no water. We're sold out. They're at capacity. We're struggling with some issues. Fifth Street has got a construction permit that allows it to be shut down so they can stage to build, and we're hoping that we can convince them to wait till after the show so that we can more efficiently marshal our buses so that they can pick up passengers instead of waiting for an empty bus to be released from the convention center and have to people wait while the empty bus comes all the way. So we'll work, that's one of the little hiccups. But there's a lot of exciting things happening. They're doing a ribbon cutting on the top of the Los Olas garage on Wednesday. We have, then there's an opening night gala over at Subiac Village, which is Pier 66. The following morning is something that I'll send Andrew the invitation. You're all welcome to come if you're interested. It's the Marine Research Hub has a summit and breakfast, and they have a couple of its speakers that have innovations that'll help the blue economy in some way. Last year was a guy that had invented a tablet that takes nitrogen out of the water, and then you can take the tablets out and it's filled with the nitrogen, and you use them as fertilizer or throw them away or do whatever you want with them, but it takes the nitrogen out of the water and improves the water quality. And then there was a woman that makes material out of kelp that matches. So like she has a test project that with Patagonia. She also can make like the plastic bags that come over your dry cleaning and make it out of kelp, so it's not plastic, it's biodegradable. It was pretty amazing. Anyway, those are the kind of projects that they present during that, so that you're all welcome to join us for that. That's Thursday morning. And on Thursday afternoon from 4 to 6, we have a, we call it global business something or other. And that's when it's sponsored by the Department of Commerce and FXE, the airport, and they talk about international trade and how we get going in and out and that thing. It's good. And it leads up to when we announce who the best in show is, which we do on the boats. So at the end of the reception, then we announce who best in show is, and you can see who that is if you're interested. So both of those, you're more than welcome to come and we'll share that with you. Looks like it's going to be a great show. We were hoping Los Olas would be a little more done than it is, but that's, we're using every inch. They're trying to do some floating docks and make do what they can in that area. They have the convention centers jammed as well, so that's good. And
we have, so the Marine Board has no bigger supporter than patients and MIASF, and so I think that it's a mutual relationship here. So again, if you'd be kind enough to update Andrew on any events you have, so we can support you the same way you support us, that would be wonderful.
You can communicate directly to the board as you're not.
I'm trying to keep them out of trouble. I'm trying to keep them out of trouble.
We do enough of that ourselves. So new business, we've got some folks here. Who do we have to speak, please? We've got a few different folks. Please stand up and introduce yourself.
Thank you so much. My name is Amanda Coleman. I am a co-owner of the Hungry Dutchman Food Boat. We are actually a new business that is here on the water. Before I dive into what I was originally coming here for, we actually happened to be on the water that day, August 13th, that those people were rescued. My co-owner, Michael, right here, was actually the one that noticed them drifting out into the waterway, and he had the 2 children and the grandfather hanging on the back of his kayak. And he was actually holding the gentleman up by his hair. We were the ones that made the 911 call and called on the VHF radio. The other men were on the whaler. They actually performed CPR frantically for about 5 minutes. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen. The only reason I say that is because we are forever grateful to see your guys' presence out on the water It is huge. You know, we run a food boat, which is something really fun, but our number one thing is safety. Safety, 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 and always trying to get people to be safe on the water. Unfortunately, that gentleman did end up passing away several days later. However, if it weren't for the presence of you all being there, as well as, you know, everyone that's on the water, he may still be in the ICW. So I just want to say thank you. Makes me emotional just thinking about it, because I don't know how you guys do it every day. And so forever grateful. You guys, the Coast Guard, all of your guys' presence out in the waterway is very, very huge. So thank you. All right, so diving into the good stuff of, you know, like I said, my name is Amanda. I'm a co-owner of the Hungry Dutchman Food Boat. I'm here with Nico Suarez. He is also another partner in this business. And then Michael Angulo is another partner as well. We appreciate the opportunity for you guys allowing us to talk here today. The Hungry Dutchman Food Boat was a concept that we came up with because we love food and guest experience. We love just being out on the waterway, especially here in Fort Lauderdale. We set the standard for us to have a legitimate business out on the waterway, a floating restaurant that's fully inspected by the health department, as well as a licensed business that pays taxes here in Fort Lauderdale, or Broward County. And we also are a inspected boat that's on the waterway. With that being said, we consider ourselves to the highest standard here in Fort Lauderdale, and we also have to do without this way and being able to give people that wonderful experience that we do love. Since we started the company, we've also inserted ourselves to become more active members within the city. In the past few months, we are members of Riverwalk of Fort Lauderdale. We've also attended several of the Chamber of Commerce committee meetings, the summer soiree with our rising leaders. And we've been actively searching for ways to promote safety within the marine industry, as well as ways to stay involved with the community to clean up our waterways, like for instance, out on the ICW and in the Triangle. Fort Lauderdale is the boating and yachting capital of the world. We're the Venice of America, and we feel honored to be a part of that here within the city. With that keeping in mind, the tourism as well as boating and yachting contributes to both the highest economic revenues here in Fort Lauderdale, and happily for the Hungry Dutchman, we are able to contribute to both of those revenues with boating as well as bringing in tourism. One of our goals when we started this company is that we wanted to create memorable experiences for our guests on the water, make Fort Lauderdale a destination for our tourists to come back. We see the greatness and uniqueness of our community, especially being a community that's here on the waterway. The Hungry Dutchman Food Boat, we're owned by 3 locals that live and work here in Fort Lauderdale. We love this city and we see the greatness that it definitely has to offer. With that mindset, we also support the growth of the city, and we want to be a contributing factor within that as well. We have been approached by View River, which is also next to New River, right on New River, as a featured guest to serve their residents weekly as well as monthly. Like they do a featured food truck on land, they wanted to have us as a featured food boat for their residents. They know that it is a unique and creative way to keep the residents entertained and to attract new residents as well. Riverwalk of Fort Lauderdale has also asked us to be part of their events along the river and with Esplanade Park. And we want to be the part of the growth of the community and the city here in Fort Lauderdale. However, as owners of the Hungry Dutchman, we've had to decline every single one of those requests. We haven't been able to partake in anything with Riverwalk. We've had to decline New River and Butte River because of the available dockage space that's right there on the New River. We understand that the floating docks were built with grant money, and we understand the restrictions on commercial vessels. However, we do want to come up with a solution that serves both of our needs. A couple of solutions that we were just kind of thinking of between the 3 of us is that we would love to pay for a city permit, you know, in order for us to go and work those special events, even if it was an event permit specifically for Riverwalk, or maybe something that's over at Esplanade Park, to pay for an event permit. Maybe something that we could also do is permits, but also maybe paying for a time slotted permit as well. So if we had access in front of the floating docks in front of New River or View River, and for instance, we could pay for a certain time, as if you pay for like a parking meter, you know, pay for a half an hour, whatever that may have permit that way, and we're only there for a certain amount of hours. We would be willing to do any sort of permit, anything to even contribute to the city, you know, we don't want to just go and sit there for free and, you know, try to thrive on our business, but we do want to help the city as well, so we would definitely be in for that, so. Nico, Michael, and myself are just so grateful for the opportunities that we've received throughout the community. However, we do feel like that we could do so much more. We want to contribute to our local economy, instill safety on the waterway, and attract tourists and thrive as a small business here in Fort Lauderdale. We believe in the city of Fort Lauderdale, and we want to show the world how amazing our community really is. So please help us in finding a solution for docking commercial vessels on New River, and we really thank you and appreciate your time listening to us.
So, you put a lot of work into that presentation.
Thank you
It's
so
very
much.
well done.
Thank you.
So thank you
I went
very
to
much.
college.
I may not help you. Thank you. So, question for, anybody have questions for Amanda, Nico, Michael? This is something we've discussed before. Is John here? John, could you intervene in any of this and what's going on with some of these boats, et cetera?
Well, we're under, we're not taking any more commercial vessels on the New River. That is a management decision above our heads. And then the other issues that come up to play is that, you know, selling food in the park, and I'm not talking about an event or something like that, but it goes against the park rules of a commercial operation in the park, and the Riverwalk is a park. So that's one of the hurdles that you have to go through. And we've experienced people doing that before with food boats, with showing up and doing it, and we can't have it. I don't know whether the special event thing is there, but again, those grant rules do apply to those docks, and it just, we would have to look at it individually as whatever the event is, because I know that, for example, we have, what's the rubber duck one? Where they put all the ducks in the water and we race them down the river. I know that they do that there and kind of.
Children in distress.
But that was more in line with that kind of event thing that you do, and it wouldn't be a commercial thing, you know what I'm saying? So the idea of selling and buying food, like a food truck on the dock, it may become a problem, whereas it's not a charitable event. Something like that. So, and I know in the past, before the city had to start enforcing these rules, there have been other things, like they had the yacht hop back a few years ago, where they had some mega yachts up there and they cooked for them, things like that. Part of the driving force behind the no commercial vessels on the river is the Riverwalk. I didn't know if you knew that. So that's why we're kind of trying to reduce that. We're not taking any more leases. We're not throwing anybody out. But as they attrit, we won't replace them. So, you know, when the dinner boats or something like that goes, that'll be it. So, but I guess my suggestion is to maybe work the event side of it. We also have very high occupancy on the river. So finding a niche for you in the seawall somewhere may not work.
We have walked up and down those seawalls so many times, I feel like I feel it on the back of my hand almost. There's only certain areas that maybe could hold a boat, however, they're just not safe for people to walk up and order. The only spot that I saw was behind the Musette, however, there's no floating dock over there. So safety would not be in our best hands, not only that, but just in general of people walking in and out in that area. The floating dock that was, or is over there is the one that is right over by, was that Third Avenue Bridge, that's floating dock. So, and once again, that's no commercial use, no staging, and I forget the other verbiage that's over there.
And you know, you may see, I don't mean to interrupt, but you may see some of that stuff going on and we're chasing it. So it's not like we're allowing it, we're just trying to keep up with it.
And I understand that. I guess my question is just how come I can't pay to be there? Like the food trucks do on land.
But they're not going into city parks unless they have an event.
I understand. I guess I'm talking about New River and View River, those condominiums right over there.
Go on their property.
They don't,
As a food truck.
as a food truck, correct?
So the difference is that you, in order for you to get your concept to work, you have to be in the park, conduct business in the park, which is not allowed.
So the events for Riverwalk, where they bring in like other food trucks and stuff, are those considered events to you? That would be something that would be permittable?
Possibly, that's why I would suggest that you guys go that way, go that route.
And when we spoke to Riverwalk, they actually told us to come speak to you guys.
Well, I think that we don't issue permits in our office, and this board doesn't do that either. It would be through Parks and Recreation.
So Parks and Recreation would
Yes.
be the. Okay.
And Andrew, who is it?
Brittany Henry.
Brittany Henry. So they have, like, if they have an event, you'll see, for example, the boat show, for example, is a huge event. The Winterfest Boat Parade is a huge event. They get permission to do that. And they have to go through, you know, this public safety things through parks, all of those people get together to make sure that that goes according to safety. And, you know, there's no issues that may come up, trash. But, and this particular person is the one who coordinates all that between all the city departments that may or may not be involved in that. And I mentioned those because they're huge, but I know that Riverwalk has events in that park and things like that, but the difference is how to get to the land from the park. If they issue you something like that, you can follow the direction.
Okay, well, that's a very positive.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Council.
Since I was 10 years old, back in the late 50s and early 60s, I grew up on the waterways in Fort Lauderdale. I love what you're doing.
Thank you.
My
Have you
heart
seen
and my
us?
spirit. Unfortunately, there's another part of me, my brain.
I want your belly.
And my brain is with the city attorney's office, and I have written a number of memos that indicates that selling the foodstuffs there at the confluence of New River and ICW is not a permitted use in that area. I don't know why it's not being enforced, but I know they've asked the questions of me several times. It's not permitted there.
I'm sorry, can you say that one more time?
Okay. You have zoning districts throughout the city.
Yes.
If you've got a residential zoning district, you can't do a commercial activity.
Sure.
You are a commercial activity. You happen to be within a residential zoning district. The zoning district lines go to the center of the waterway.
Oh, you're.
And I've had-
In the.
At the triangle.
Yeah, the triangle, right.
Not-
Now,
not
there
the
are other
city.
places where it can be done. I don't remember them off the top of my head, but I challenge staff to go through it with a fine tooth comb so that I think it was your predecessor, Sandbar. Was that the name of the other vessel?
He's still there.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, I made staff go through with a fine tooth comb and establish the other areas where it could be done. Because as I say, my heart, my spirit, I love what you're doing. I've been there myself.
Yeah, and generally, as a board, we like to solve problems. So first of all, you didn't waste your time. Presentation was excellent. You got folks here that are involved in a variety of things throughout the town, and I think you will speak very well of how you presented yourself. The law is the law. And unfortunately, John, who just spoke before, mentioned some time ago that with respect to these kind of food truck boats, it's a failed plan. To have a business plan where you had no place to park the boat, it's a tough one. So the idea that you may be able to pay for a permit, et cetera, what you will find is everyone here is incredibly empathetic. We were all where you guys were, at different points in our career, and we fully support what you're doing. But we have to do it legally, obviously, within the rights of other folks, et cetera. So if you can follow parks and there's anything else we can do, please forward a message to Street Andrew. And I think you'll find that we are fully supportive. As Councilor said, it just has to be done accordingly. But let's see. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? Patience.
I think what you don't understand about the grant problem is a problem. Because the grant specifically says not commercial, so no matter what permit they give you, you still violate the grant, and that means the next time he wants to put in a dock and he goes for money, they're gonna go, yeah, you didn't want it. Or they could ask them for the money back, because they've done it.
Because there's really two issues. The dock itself is a grant money that says no commercial vessel can dock on it, period. Then there's an issue with no commercial stuff in the
park. Unless we have a permit that is like, business, looked over 100 times.
So what would happen in your case, just to carry it through a little bit, you would go through the person that Andrews did to work your way through the system, but the way the rule is written in the parks rules, which are on the internet at the city website, it says that you have to get specific mission, from the director of Parks and Recreation, and that's a letter that it would allow you to do something like that. And in most cases, when we have a vendor that would come into a park, it's through a request for proposals, where we want to have a vendor or a motorized water equipment vendor, like on the beach with the jet skis, say that kind of thing. So there's a process for that in that respect. Now, looking at these event things, that this has to be pitched. And if it's something that, honestly, I'll be honest with you, if it's something that's a charitable thing, I would imagine that your chances are better than rather than just a straight commercial venture. So if you're participating with the Riverwalk and they have an event, let's say it's a food truck or something like that, and then we would have to figure out where we can put you. And I'll be honest with you, there's a floating dock, a concrete floating dock there that we do permit some docking on. Now, it was issued by a different granting agency, and then we would have to get their okay for that. But that's the Maritime Museum dock. So they're not like ESP where it's recreational involved. This is a little bit different. So the Riverwalk will then post you to possibly you can put you there. There are some restrictions on that I would have to look into. If it's an event, certainly willing to give it a shot.
That's over by the.
That's.
No, that's Esplanade.
You guys are familiar with the Esplanade Park.
By the house.
The big jump.
You know where the cul-de-sac is, it's at the end of there, it's over towards where the Bryant Homes are, or what used to be the, what was the name of the river house? The River House, there. So there's there's two spaces there that we could possibly get them in, but for an event, not for, because that would circumvent the parks.
We were just looking for events like over in that area, not necessarily something.
Yeah.
To like sit at, like a food truck. Because we are aware that food trucks do have to use like private property, private parking lots, that sort of thing. But yeah, during special events over by Esplanade Park is where.
The main piece of our business, I think, is the catering aspect. And that's what we want. The catering aspect is like one of the biggest pieces of our business. We'd like to go behind, a house that would be able to hire us as a catering. They would have a private property, that is the end goal. But being part of the city would be.
So speak with that person and work with, with the Riverwalk to find out if there's an event that fits. And then we'll work with them to see how to make it work.
Thank you, John. Thank you. I think that the reason we took so much time is we really do care about you guys. We've all been in the same situation. We got a growing business and we fully support that. Again, we've got to see if we can work with the confines of the town. Thank you. Anybody else with new business? Anybody else have any questions? Board, anybody else want to share something?
I just have something and I don't even need 5 minutes. It's just something I want us to put on the agenda for maybe, I want to say the next meeting, but I just looked at the calendar and I'm at the Annapolis Powerboat Show, so I will be absent for that one. I'm sorry. But something I noticed recently and more recently than living on the New River and walking those docks every day, there's an enormous amount of trash floating in the New River, and it's getting worse. And I don't know, as an advisory board, if we can, as an advisory board, communicate through Andrew ways that maybe we can use our relationships with the people we have relationships with, whether it's 4Ocean, find sponsors, local sponsors. But, it's like cleaning the bathroom in your house, but then you walk through mud to go back to the bathroom. We're not doing any good by doing 100 ocean and beach cleanup projects. Meanwhile, the river looks like a garbage truck dumped itself into it. I mean, and with all of the new buildings going up, with all of the construction workers and the people and all of the people walking down our Riverwalk now, that this wasn't 10 years ago when I got here. You know, you saw a few people. Now you see dozens and thousands of people running and walking. And I'm not saying they're dropping trash and throwing trash, but we've also got homeless populations and we've got people that are just disrespectful. I think we can, as a board and as a community, come together a little better. And I mean, I've seen 4 Ocean do ocean sweeps. And all of those things.
Well, you have it
May-
everywhere, every
Right.
canal.
Yeah.
And the worst part is watching raw sewage flow by because pumps of boats are pumping out. So it's a really big problem. It's one as a board, we talked about it over and over the previous years, et cetera. It's what we've also realized is we have to take things in small steps. So we have to somehow prove that they pumped out, et cetera. There's a huge picture here. If it's something you'd like to put on the agenda with a specific topic, we could certainly do that. I don't know if anybody has any other thoughts, but it's such a huge picture. 5 minutes isn't going to do it justice. Right?
That's why I wanted to bring it up so we can make it maybe an agenda item that we can dive a little deeper into when we have more time and that kind of thing.
I think it's a good idea.
So there's a
We need a solution.
contractor,
Yes.
there's a contractor that actually does that work. They sweep the entire city. How often I can find out for you. Melissa Doyle is the gal who oversees the contract for the city. And whenever someone's come to me and said there's a piling floating by or a confluence of trash,
They're my best friends.
please engage the contractor.
They're my best friends.
What's the
The
name?
garbage barge, the garbage barge.
What's the name of the company?
I don't know, I just have the guy's phone number, I text him,
They're very.
and he goes to it and gets whatever.
So that's how responsive they are.
Yeah.
And they also do sweeps, and it's my understanding there's 3 segments of the city that they do different areas, different days. Because it's such a big area. And I'll find out if I can get that phone number to you and the rest of the board so that you can call them as well.
Okay.
Okay, great.
It's not, and with respect to putting it on the agenda, we're pretty loose here. You know, whether it's on the agenda or not, we'll make time to talk about it. If it's something that we've got specific proposals, again, we've had a number of ideas tossed around over the past few years. Unfortunately, nothing ever materialized. It came down to funding, et cetera. But let's see if we can continue the discussion.
Okay.
Norbert.
Steve, that, by the way, that number that you're talking about, if there's anything on there, there's 24/7, Fort Lauderdale has answers phone. And I found out when you call them, like even if your company doesn't pick up your trash cans or something like that, they're there the next day and everything else. And I've seen that boat, I said, when they come in, because a lot of times when the wind's coming out of my canal fills up with a lot. And I call them and they're there and they now have a boat. It's not like the pollution solution. This one works. So in other words, that thing was a piece of junk. But anyway, they now have a boat that goes under all fixed bridges and everything else. And the guys are quite efficient. I don't know the name of the company.
So you call the 8,000 number, is that what you're saying?
What's that?
You call the 8,000 number, the city's 828-8000?
I don't know what number it is. My wife usually calls that. She has a number of speed dial. I
So it's
think.
828-8000.
Yeah, but if you call them
That's the city.
and you report anything, they're 24/7, so they're pretty good. To be honest with you.
That's true.
If you call that number and your problem, they'll email the right people. I get requests through that as well.
You too.
Anybody else before we adjourn for dinner?
No, he's not like past his back on.
Yeah.
Well, you know, and Andrew said we'd be out of here by 8, so we're in good shape. Anything else before we close, guys? Thank you all. It's great to see you. We have, again, the boat show next month and hopefully an interesting agenda. So thank
Get
you.
summit ideas to me, get your summit ideas.
Yeah.
Get the ideas to Andrew. And again, look, this is, we're not meeting just once a month. There's a regular dialogue that goes on every day when the Andrew and the variety. So this is a dialogue. So let's make sure Brewster's point again is an example. It's something we talked about and just brushed off. We're going to focus on any hot buttons. Let's make sure that this is an interactive organization and really accomplish it. Phil, thanks again for joining us. Again, thank you all and
I'd like to thank the city attorney, the city assistant attorney anyway, for being here and stuff tonight and everything else and stuff on it. I didn't realize that that's your time and everything else and stuff on it, and I just want to say I appreciate you being here.
So see, it's one of our best friends. I shared this with you, and that's why, again, when Bob Dunkel says, hey, we could look at the preamble, take a look. This is a big friend of ours. So again, it's. We have a motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned.
Bob Franks,
Second.
second.
Franks and